Hey folks, welcome to Acceleration Radio. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, and I'm in this 28-foot trailer on my burned-out property. FEMA came in and they scraped it all. They got rid of all the stuff. I'll see if I can show you some pictures at some point. But I got to tell you, it's been a long haul. It was November 9th exactly of 2018. We were in Dallas speaking at John B. Wells's conference. A little name dropping there, thank you. And we've been watching the fire, and our daughter was texting us, and people were calling, and we knew it had jumped the 101 freeway. The winds were 30, 40, 50 miles an hour gusts, and we watched and knew that it had burned, and we lost everything. We knew that. And I stood up in front of, 300-400 people that afternoon because I was talking and lecturing there on Fatima. And I just said, you know what, folks, we just lost everything. I mean, everything. We're completely wiped out. But I know this, God will bring good out of this because that's what he does. And I got to tell you, folks, it's a little testimony here. I'm in the trailer on the burnt out property, and so far he has brought nothing but good out of this absolute tragedy. And I'm going to state here that eventually we'll be in a brand new house, we'll be debt free, living on the property. And look, I turned 70 years old this year, okay? So there is no retirement when you do what I do. I love what I do. I'm not even thinking about retirement, but it's nice to be debt free in a brand new house. And I want to thank the folks that contributed to help us get a landing place in Oklahoma. And just want Peggy and I just really thank you guys for that. But we were, when it happened, I never wanted to see this place again. I was so overwhelmed by it and depressed. All my original scores that I had written when I was with this orchestra in my 20s, that all burned. All my original scores later on, when I became a Christian and wrote the Life of Christ cantata thing, all that got burned. Early tapes, priceless manuscripts, research stuff, all went up in smoke, and you can't replace that. And nor am I going to even try at this point, because it's up in smoke, literally. Not like Cheech and Chong, but it's up in smoke. But I didn't want to rebuild, and I ran to Oklahoma because of Bob Ulrich and Gary Stearman. And it was a landing place, and it was familiar, and it was a place for Peggy and I just to kind of heal up, and the animals. The animals were in absolute shock. So we all were, and we got there, and it was definitely healing. A lot of healing took place. We started up Acceleration Radio, got a beautiful suite there, and edit suite, and started working on films. And by the way, this year we will have 3 films out this year. Shameless plug, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But it was wonderful. It was great. And then the weather hit, and I kind of dealt with the winter. I grew up on the East Coast, so I know what a winter is. Same with Peggy. But after living 45 years in California, that was a little difficult for both of us. But we toughed it out. And in May, it's when everything changed for me, because, and bear with me, because it's a really cool story. At least I think it's a cool story. And it goes back to what the Lord told me something basically 40 years ago. But the story was this. I got a phone call in May, and it was from FEMA. And they were up here. They were going to scrape the property and start the debris cleanup. And they did that free of charge, thank God, because it would have been thousands of dollars. They scraped roughly 2 feet of soil off our property, and they did it 3 times. They kept scraping and scraping and scraping until there was no lead content or any other minerals. So we got a clean bill of health, as it were. But when they told me they were starting, and I'm in Oklahoma, and part of me wanted to fly back and, micromanage it and just see, and I just went, eh. But something emotional, something visceral hit me. And I came back to the house and I said, Peg, I don't know what it is, but I'm really emotional about all this today. And it doesn't make any sense because God's given us this beautiful home and we're here. So anyway, we had to come out in May and look at the property. There were things to do and all this other stuff. So we came out, and this is where it gets kind of neat. My wife went with our daughter, Sarah. So I'm alone on the property. It's about 4:30 and the sun is just starting to set. and I'm up on this place which we call Topside. I had built a deck up there. It looks down the canyon to a blue water ocean view. Honestly, it's my favorite place to hang out on the planet. It really is. It's quiet. You don't see any other houses around. For all practical purposes, you're the only couple of people on the planet. It's really a cool place to hang out. And we've had friends like Gary Stearman and Bob Ulrich. They've eaten there, and other people. So it's just really cool. But everything was scraped clean. So there was nothing there. There was not even a vestige of what it looked like, just raw earth. So I'm kind of feeling melancholy, and I kind of walk down the path and get to this place where there's a circle of rocks that were stacked up in this circle. And there was a tree there that we had planted, but the tree burned. It was no longer there. And feeling kind of emotional, I'm not sure why. So hold that thought. Now jump back in time, basically it'll be 40 years ago this June. I'm a brand new Christian. And it's Jimmy Carter as president. Interest rates were 21%. I've got my only spec house I've ever done. I was in construction then, and it's on the market, and it's just sitting there for 2 years because interest rates are 21%. Nothing is moving. Thank you, Mr. Carter. So I was behind in my rent, and I was living on this property and in the guest house, which I had built with these two hands. And later on we bought the property, but that's another story. And I went to the previous owner, the guy we bought the property from, and I said, look, I'm a couple of months behind the rent. My house is on the market. It's not selling. Interest rates are high, but bear with me. How about if I landscape your property and I'll pay it off? He said, sure. So I ordered a bunch of river rock, and I love working with my hands, and I love doing landscaping, and still do. And I'm stacking the river rock and making this circle of rock with, that's a raised bed. And it was really cool. And I'm doing it, and I'm stacking the rock, and the Lord speaks to me. Now, for those of you who think that that's weird, Lord speaks to him. What the heck is he talking about? God speaks to Marzulli? I can't believe it. Well, that should be normal. If you're a born-again and spirit-filled Christian, then God speaks to you. It's not like in an audible voice, although I have heard that several times. But there's that tap on the shoulder. The Spirit of the living God will guide a person's steps. And we're not talking religion here. We're talking about, and I use this when I'm at conferences, my spirit guide. But he is my spirit guide. The Spirit of the living God is my spirit guide. And so the Lord taps me on the shoulder and says, you're doing this, stacking the river rock for yourself. This is yours. This is yours. And I'm going like, how can that possibly be? This is mine? What? And the bottom line was 7 years later, and when this was happening, I was stacking the river rock. I hadn't met Peggy yet. I was single. And then we got married, and 3.5 years later, we closed escrow on the place. So I've lived here deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains in an undisclosed location for literally 40 years, actually 42 years to be exact. So it's home. We bought both of our children home. So let's fast forward now. So now it's May of 2019, last year. And I'm there at that circle of rock that was all burnt out and fire encrusted, and there's nothing left. And, FEMA had scraped everything. So it's not like it just like, oh my gosh, it wasn't traumatic. Everything was clean and scraped, basically a clean slate. And my Lord speaks to me and says, L.A., pick up a stone. And I kind of go, whoa. So I look down, and I'm at the circle of rock, and I pick up a stone, a piece of river rock. And my Lord says, the land is yours. The land is yours. The land is yours. And I just started bawling. And because it was exactly what happened 40 years, ago, 39 years ago. The same exact deal. This is yours. It was a reaffirmation. This is yours. So some people are going, oh my God, LA, you're moving back to California. I can't believe it. Look, people got to walk where they walk. And, you can't run somebody else's life. And I'm not going to let you run my life. So if you don't agree with that, that's fine. You can pray for me. But this is my home, and this is our home, Peggy and my home. This is I brought my bride home, and we bought the place, and here we are. And we're going to rebuild it, and I'm going to be filming all this. It's a gigacrete house, and wait till you see it. It goes up really quick. It's the home of the future. So anyway, I'm already 13 minutes into the show. Let's get into something. Birth pangs. This is a blog that I wrote a couple of days ago. And by the way, we have our new website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and check that out. Spent a lot of time on it. We're still working out some of the bugs, but bear with us. So, birth pangs. UN warns of major shock as Africa locust outbreak spreads. Commentary and a wake-up call by your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. To the natural man, what we are seeing, the coronavirus, the wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places, pestilence, and the rise of lawlessness can all be explained away. Nothing to see here. Business as usual. Just keep moving. All things continue as they always have, L.A. You're just being an alarmist. Why, since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as before. Where is the promise of his coming? Please, don't annoy me with your warnings of doom and gloom. Folks, the atmosphere is charged. We are living in unprecedented times. Will there be a revival? I think and pray there will be. But we must understand and come to grips with what I would call the overwhelming facts that everything Jesus told us about, the time just before his return, is hitting on all 8 cylinders. In other words, what we are seeing is not the tribulation, the 7-year period of God's wrath being poured upon the earth, but these are the birth pangs that lead up to it. We are told to watch and be ready. These are Jesus' words of warning to us. Watch what, you ask? Watch for the signs of his return. He called these signs out with great specificity. Now we are seeing them manifest in real time for those of us who have eyes to see. So how then should we live? Knowing that the biblical prophetic narrative is 100% accurate 100% of the time, we should be bold in our witness to those around us. We should warn that what we are seeing manifest in our world today is right out of the pages of the Bible. What was written will come to pass. What was foretold is unfolding. Let's walk through this. Let's unpack this. I can't stand that phrase. I'm going to unpack this now. Got a little some underwear. Here are the socks. Oh, nice clean handkerchiefs for you. A couple of pairs of shirts. I digress. But here's the deal, folks. People think they understand and they know what the Bible is, but they've never read it. I was just at a conference, and there were a lot of New Agers there. And, you know, I got scoffed at, but I'm a big boy. That goes to the territory. I get scoffed at Christian churches, so it's all good. But and when you sit there and you ask them, well, have you ever actually read it? Have you actually studied? Well, no, but I went to Sunday school 30 years ago. Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. First of all, it's a closed book. What I mean by that, unless a person is spirit-filled and born again, they can't possibly understand what it is that they're looking at, because it has to be spiritually discerned. So the prophetic thread, which goes from Genesis to Revelation, written by 40 authors, 60 books, 66 books, whatever, and 60 books, 40 authors? I'm so bad at math, please forgive me. But those books in the Bible, all those books from Genesis to Revelation that make up the biblical narrative, there's some, John the Revelator did not know Moses. I mean, they're hundreds, if not thousands of years apart from each other. And yet, what Chuck Missler used to say, it's an integrated message system. What we see is that everything is integrated. It's incredible. And what I mean by that is when you study the book of Revelation, this is just an example, unless you have a firm knowledge of what the book of Daniel is talking about, when you get to Revelation, it's really difficult to understand what this is. But when you overlay Daniel, there's the integration part to Revelation, all of a sudden it becomes really clear. So I don't want to use the show for a Bible study, but in some ways, I'm trying to educate those of you who think that this is like, oh, it's just the Bible, blah, blah, blah. You got to disconnect from the nonsense that you see on TV and understand that someone outside space and time as we know it is calling out future events with 100% accuracy and great specificity. That's what they're doing. And that alone should blow us away. Why is it that it's okay to talk about Nostradamus? For all you Nostradamus out there, no offense, please. But why is it that Nostradamus is only like, 50, 60% right? And I'm being generous. And the quatrains are fuzzy. But here we have real prophecy, 100% accuracy, 100% of the time, spanning over thousands of years, and yet we see it's an integrated message system, and oh, someone just called in and it just bounced me off my camera. So let me just back up there because I'm recording this on the phone because I don't have the other camera with me. So what we see is it's an integrated message system, and we have to ask ourselves, I mean, if we're intellectually honest and intellectually curious, we have to at least go, wow, maybe I should take a look at this, what this character Marzulli is talking about, because that prophetic thread runs through the entire Bible. And guess what? The words of Yeshua, of Jesus, written 2,000 years ago, he gives us the punch list. And as I stated, it's all happening in real time as we speak. So you've got this coronavirus. Was it man-made? In my opinion, it probably is man-made. But, we don't know yet. Meanwhile, people were dying. Quarantine stuff was going on. I had a friend of mine who's a pastor. Let me get a swig of coffee here. And this is, at best, second-hand information. So you got to run with it and do with it what you will. There's really no way to vet it. But apparently this guy who runs a church, he's got several buses that he uses, and he was contacted by the federal government asking about what kind of bus it was, what kind of air conditioning unit that they had. So they came in and rented the buses, apparently. So this is a good story, but there's no way to vet it. And I'm a little skeptical of stuff like this. I've been burned in the past. So it's an interesting story, but it could just be something that's concocted and made up to cause fear. But what he said is that the feds came in, they did something with the air conditioning and buses, and then the buses were escorted. Basically, they're taking people who have been to China and are in quarantine, and the buses were used as transports. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But there are some interesting side effects that are going on. We know that the cruise ship is in quarantine, and those passengers on that cruise ship are in quarantine. We know that the virus is definitely spreading. The death count continues to rise, but we don't know whether it's going to be a pandemic like the flu was in 1917, where millions of people worldwide died, for crying out loud. We don't know that. So, right now I think it's still under 1,000. I could be wrong on that number. It could be, right around 1,000 people globally. That's alarm, concern for alarm. I get it. I heard a report last night about the CDC saying there's no concern for alarm, at least in this country. But, people say things like that to keep the public somewhat sedated. I would say this, folks, and I'll be talking about some of this at the Hear the Watchman conference, which is coming up now in March, early March, and you can go to hearthewatchman.com and check that out. I will be speaking about preparation, and it's just, look, I had a root cellar here, and we had it stocked full of food, and I never anticipated the heat of the fire. The fire was so hot that it burned the fireproof door right off its hinges, and so everything in the root cellar was completely smoke damaged. So we had to throw all the food out that we had. So as much as I prepared for it, I wasn't prepared for anything even remotely like what hit here. You get earthquakes at 9.0 on the Richter scale, you get fires, you get tornadoes. But the bottom line is we need to stock up on food, need to stock up on water, have a generator. In fact, you can probably hear that in the distance. That's my generator running, which keeps all the power on. I don't even have power here in my trailer. So I go down and get gasoline 2 or 3 times a week and keep things running here. But it's important for us to realize that we are in this window of time, which in my opinion is unprecedented. Jesus gives us this punch list. Wars and rumors of wars, check. Earthquakes in diverse places, check. Famines, pestilence. I mean, think about this locust pestilence, this outbreak of locust in Africa that's happening, that blackens the sky. It's, according to some people, it's like the worst outbreak of locusts in a long time. So, then you start adding things like the rise of earthquakes, the rise of volcanic activity. I talked about one thing, the rise of lawlessness. But what does that mean? Well, we see this rise of lawlessness where somebody can just be walking down the street and somebody just passes them and goes, boom, and cold cocks them. the knockout game, which was pretty much the latest fad a couple of years back. We see the rise of lawlessness on our southern border, where the drug cartels literally rule Mexico. And that I don't go to Mexico anymore. And I really want to go back to Teotihuacan and film there and talk about what that is. That's an amazing site. I was there for like 5 hours, spent a day with my guide, and I had Montezuma's Revenge. I had altitude sickness when I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I was not a happy camper, didn't do well there at all. But I still have stills and some video from it. But the drug cartels run that country, with all due respect. And now what we see is this like warring right on the border, and these atrocities happen. And you get ISIS, burning alive people in cages and things like this. Then you've got the abortion holocaust, which is like now well over 1.6, 1.7 billion people on the planet. So, you put all these things together, folks, and we are living in tenuous, tumultuous times. But I'm at the bottom of the hour, and I just want to say this, that I'm going to run some Jingos commercials that we did before. But Jingos has just been, they stood by us through the fire and everything else, and they're just a great company. They're American-based, folks, first of all. Everything is made in Ohio. So they're using this guy called Tarby, who's from New Zealand, but Jingos is made right here in the USA. I've been to the small little modest factory, and Kevin and the gang are there, and they cook the Jingos up and they make it, and people use it all the time, and we get accolades from people and testimonials from people. The bottom line is, this stuff really does work. www.buyjingles.com, buyjingles.com. Stick with me here. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Feeling sluggish, bloated, gassy, and, want some relief? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Our unique blend of all natural herbs go to work on your digestive tract, giving you So before you try our super strength formula. It does a great job removing intruders that jack you up. Thousands of people use Life Change Tea every month, so try it because you're gonna love the way you feel. And here's a little pick-me-up. Order now and receive 10% off your first order by entering in 10 today in the coupon code. That's 10 today in the coupon code. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Enter 10 today in the coupon code for your 10% discount. Wow, feeling good never felt so good. Get some tea love at getthetea.com. Changing America one tea bag at a time.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert. Filling in for Smokey, because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Whitley Strieber, author of Communion and a New World, lecturer and radio host of Dreamland Radio. Be sure to catch my show Friday nights at midnight Eastern Time right here on kgraradio.com.
Find the podcast on iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. kgraradio.com.
What UFO convention are we going to this year?
We're going to the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference February 15th through the 22nd.
I went to their website, LaughlinUFOMegaconference.com, and confirmed we're going to see the best speaker lineup ever offered.
Yes, the greatest gathering of scientists, researchers, and experiencers ever assembled in one place and time. 39 great new presentations over 8 days.
And all at the lowest cost, including 3 social party meal nights with drinks. The Laughlin UFO Mega Conference out contacts that thing in the desert. It out ancient histories, that alien con job. And it out internationals, the International UFO Congress, bringing us 9 speakers from out of the USA this year alone.
8 days in Laughlin, February 15th through 22nd. The best speaker lineup ever. incredible disclosures, lowest cost for the best event.
Go to LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. That's LaughlinUFOMegaConference.com. Register now.
Author Kathleen Watts, a.k.a. Thought Continuum, shares a double abduction experience in her book, Catch Me If You Can, a story of alien abduction and culprit plunder. This 1976 true life account of a close encounter in northern Utah near Hill Air Force Base. Imagine driving home from the movies with your spouse when your car suddenly stops working, and it's in that very same moment that you realize you are the only thing animated. Catch Me If You Can, the 5th anniversary edition with lead-in material for the upcoming release of Payback is a Glitch from award-winning author Kathleen Watts. Get your copy today. Log on to thoughtcontinuum.com. That's thoughtcontinuum.com.
For years, the KGRA digital broadcast station has been your contact for live UFO paranormal talk radio worldwide, bringing you the top names in research and investigations 7 nights a week. Our listeners connect to the KGRA on various platforms like TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and many more. Now, you can stream your favorite paranormal talk radio shows with our new fully integrated custom KGRA mobile apps for Android and iPhones. Listen to your favorite paranormal talk shows from any mobile device 24/7, free with smartphone or tablet. Utilize custom features to access news, show pages, archives, contests, events, and live interactive chat rooms. Set show notification alerts and never miss your favorite live programs. All free and available to download in Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your intrepid host, live from an undisclosed location deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains. And you know, it's amazing here. It's all green. In fact, I'm going to take the camera. I'm just going to show you what's outside my window. There it is. Those are the pepper trees we just planted right there. Nice and green here in California. People in California have always been good partners, LA. But yeah, we've got pepper trees and all. It's the winter. It's already spring here. It really is. It's spring is. It happens in February here. Actually, the end of January, the narcissus come up and it's beautiful. But we've got some questions, and I'm going to try to get to all of them. We'll see what happens. This is from Ryan. Can you share more about Operation Titan? First of all, there could be a couple of things that Ryan's asking. I'm not sure, but as far as I know. What I think he's alluding to is there was a guy that contacted me via the net, and he went dark on me. So basically, he told me that he was at one time active military, no longer doing that, high security clearance, and he talked about that there was a code name called Operation Titan. When they would bring in the dead giants from Afghanistan and Iraq, they would fly them in to this location. And wherever the location was, I'm gonna say I believe it was Wright Pat. He never really disclosed that, but it was probably Wright Patterson. And he was supposed to meet me in Dallas at the Hear the Watchman conference. And in fact, we had emailed each other and discussed things, and I actually talked to him on the phone. We went totally dark. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but this dovetails into Steve Quayle's work, because Quayle broke the story. Steve broke the story years ago when the helicopter pilot from Iraq called Steve and told him about this giant that they flew out of Iraq. Well, our shooter, which was years later, was Afghanistan. So you've got two different giants in two different locations. And Steve and I actually talked about that, and we got the shooter and the pilot together, and they conversed about it, which was really interesting. So there's more than one, and since we went public with it, I've had other people come up to me at conferences. I'll just tell you one story. Guy who's active military came up at a conference. I've never seen the guy before or after. And, could he be making it up? Yeah, he could be making it up. I don't know. How do you prove it? But he looked me right in the eye, no fidgeting, body language was there. And he just, and it was a time when there was really nobody around at the table. And he just said, LA, I'm active military. Oh, and he keeps calling. He said, 3, 2, 1. When someone calls in on my phone, I'm recording this on the phone, folks, and I'll post it on my YouTube channel. I don't have my camera with me, so I'm doing it this way. But he came up at a time when there was really nobody at the table. And he looked me right in the eye and said, LA, I have a story for you. I'm active military, and I can't come on the record. I can't sign anything, and I won't sign anything. But I was called in to a site, and the moment my helicopter landed, I was promoted, and my security clearance went up. And I was told to take this particular bundle that was on a pallet, and it was covered with a tarp, to a particular location, which he did. And I asked him, was it biological? And he just went like this. And then he backed up and slowly went away. Before he backed up, I forgot. I asked him, was it biological? And he just went like this. I said, was it a giant? And he went that way. And then he backed up, and I've never seen the guy again. So, stuff is happening. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And it's what can I tell you, folks? There's more than one. And what's alarming about this, we don't know how many of them that there are. We don't know if they're thousands of years old. In other words, if you have an entity, the Nephilim, that are part fallen angel, which are immortal, by the way, and human, which are mortal, and you combine that DNA somehow, and you create this hybrid being known as the Nephilim, because that's what these giants are, no doubt about that. Can they be killed? Well, we know from David and Goliath that you got to decapitate them. But we don't know their lifespan. We don't know if they're 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years old. The shooter in Afghanistan told us that giant that he killed, his platoon killed by machine gunning, firing all these rounds at the head, basically decapitated the thing. He said the stench was overwhelming. It was like it almost made everyone just nauseous, throw up. It was that overpowering. Is that because they eat flesh and they live underground and they don't bathe? I don't know. We have more questions with this than we have answers to, and that's problematic. So let me go on here to another question if we have. This is from Matthew Miller. Ask LA anything. Matthew Miller here from the End Time Tribune. Hi, Matt. Good to hear your voice or read your thoughts. Love to come back on your show. Let's try to plan something. This is from my Facebook riddle of the day. Thought you'd be the best qualified individual to ask. I'm horrible at riddles, but I'll give it a go. Why does God use swarm against the fallen, and or their Nephilim spawn? We know this from not only Exodus 23:28, and he's naming a bunch of different scriptures, but we also have the plagues of Egypt: frogs, lice, and gnats, flies, locusts. All these were acting with the hive mind of a swarm. Is that these entities could not lock on to the isolated thoughts pattern of an individual? Is that what the Holy Spirit does to jam our communication? Is this why we are all members of the one body? I'm still not really exactly sure what you're asking, Matthew. Let's go back into the plagues that God uses against Egypt. All of those plagues, first of all, the first 3 of them, are duplicated by Pharaoh's magicians. So there's power there. There's demonic power, and they're tapping into it. Remember, at the time of Moses and Aaron showing up in Pharaoh's court, there is a global, worldwide occult paradigm, which is, of course, an operation. And most people don't understand that. So with that in mind, all those plagues duplicate the gods, some of the gods of Egypt. but it's turned against them. So what we see is that the Most High God, the real one, is using these lesser gods and what they control against them. And you're right, this whole idea of a hive mentality, what I find interesting is when the darkness comes upon Egypt, but it doesn't. The darkness doesn't happen to the Israelites when the Passover, when they take the blood of a lamb and they put it on the doorpost, which is really the sign of the cross, and the blood of a lamb, right? I mean, that's a 3-hour discussion right there. But the Israelites, they sacrifice a lamb without blemish, and they take the blood and a hyssop branch and they put it over the lintel and then the side posts. And then God's angel of death, passes over the Israelites and kills the firstborn of the Egyptians. Well, you say, well, gee, why is he doing that? Because Pharaoh won't let him go. Pharaoh won't let him go because he doesn't want to lose the slave labor. And it happens over and over and over again. So, the riddle of the day is really interesting, but we know that some of these plagues that happen in the book of Revelation mimic the plagues that happen in the Genesis narrative. So, these things are beginning to happen again, and it's alarming, folks. It's alarming. But we have to understand that there is a cosmic war that's been happening literally in an unseen dimension. And for all those who are young earthers, I understand that this is going to insult some of you who believe in that this whole thing is only 6,000 years. Well, mankind, the recreation of mankind is very new. I don't think it's 6,000 years. It's more like 12 to 20. But that's nothing in geological time. The bottom line is the universe is far older than that. And something cataclysmic happened, which is why I'm an old earther, not a young earther. The earth is lying in ruin. Toho Vavohu. It's just like sitting there. The Spirit of the living God is brooding over the waters. Something incredibly cataclysmic had just happened on the planet. And I would put it to you that it was the extinction of the dinosaurs, which happened in the far distant past, okay? And all this is, very controversial, and I understand that. But that's why in Genesis it says, replenish the earth. Well, if it's never been created, we're creating it for the first time, why would you use the word replenish? But they use replenish. Moses chooses that word, replenish the earth. So that's what the mandate is, to go replenish the earth. But here's what happens when Adam and Eve are there, and this is what is germane to this whole discussion. When Adam and Eve are there, they choose to decide and they follow the dragon. They take in the dragon code. They willingly, free will, willingly believe the dragon over the Most High God. That's the test. And so they eat of that fruit, and whatever that fruit is, they take in the spirit of the dragon upon them, which changes their DNA. Everything changes at that instant. So the whole idea of the Messiah, when Messiah came the first time, and he's coming again, by the way, but when he comes the first time, he changes the DNA code. That's what being born again is. People don't understand this. It's not a bunch of yahoos yelling and screaming on stage and throwing a Bible up in the air. It's not what it is. It's a deeply personal experience that you have with the Spirit of a living God who leads you and me into all truth. And what that does is it begins to change our DNA into what it was originally before the fall. So we begin to leave the DNA code of the dragon is broken. You say, LA, what is this DNA code of the dragon? What are you talking about? Let me ask you something, folks. How is it that you don't have to tell a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you don't have to teach them how to lie? How come they just know how to do that? That's the dragon code. How come you don't have to teach a child to steal or to disobey? How come they just do that naturally? And then we have to correct them. Oh, you can't steal. That's not good. You can't steal something. When your mother tells you no cookies before dinner, you can't sneak the cookie. Okay, can't do that. Why is that in the child? Where does that come from? That's the dragon code. That's what we're talking about. So Messiah came to break the dragon code in every man, woman, and child on the planet. That's the good news. And you probably never heard it put in a way like that. So you say, well, hey, how do I escape from a dragon code? How do I get the code of the Messiah? You just say, okay, I believe that you were sent here to do that. And you understand that the suffering on Calvary, the suffering of the cross, paid the price that the dragon demanded, paid the price that God demanded himself in order to reconcile this whole thing. So it breaks the dragon code and reconciles with the Most High God. That's reality. Do I understand the depth of it? No, I don't. And that's after 40 years of walking with the Messiah. I still don't really fully grasp what's at stake here. I only know that wherever he went when he was here the first time, goodness overflowed. And that goodness is in my own life, which is why, circling back to the fire deal, when it happened, I just sat there and told the people, God will bring good out of this, because that's his job description and that's what he's going to do. So let's move on here. I'm going to go back and I want to read another blog. Let me see if I can get to it. I think I can. Yes, I can. Here we go. But yeah, let me see. We're winding it down, but there's a snake-like UFO that this is the blog today, one of the blogs today, and it was this. There's a snake-like UFO returns to Florida. So it's light in the sky. It's kind of pulsing. Not sure what that is, why it's doing that. It's sort of like the miracle of the sun that happened over Fatima. So you can go to the blog, lamarzulli.wordpress.com, and check it out for yourself. So here's the blog. This story was posted on a Drudge Report. Need I say more? Of course I do. And so your intrepid host will continue to warn about the coming great deception. Tick-tock, tick-tock. We've turned a corner as more UFO sightings are being reported on mainstream media outlets than ever before. Can full disclosure be imminent? Recently, I had a case in which a man has been seeing lots of UFOs. In fact, he gets up at 3 a.m. and goes outside his house and photographs them. Mistake number one. He also has missing time, and recently marks appeared on his arm. The troubling aspect is this. Identical marks appeared on the man's son's arm as well. Coincidence? I don't think so. He went to his doctor, and the doctor ruled out bug bites and stated that the marks looked surgical. I've heard this before. I told him that he needed to get help and support from a local body of believers. So I asked him for the number of the church he was going to. I called and tried to talk to the pastor in charge of the men's ministry. It didn't go well, as the man that I was speaking to basically thought I was off my rocker. And so this is the problem. Here's a man who's having encounters, and there's nowhere to turn. He's in another part of the country. I'm out here in California, and right now we're based in Oklahoma. He's in another state completely, hundreds if not thousands of miles away. I can't go and work with this guy. I can't do it. I can text him, I can email him, but he needs the support of a local body. The church should be at the forefront of defining what the UFO phenomenon is, which in my opinion is demonic deception. Instead, most churches just choose to ignore it and perhaps even think that it will just go away. It's not going to go away, and in fact, I'll state here that the phenomenon is burgeoning. There's that word. Most churches and pastors still do not take the subject seriously. However, this man who contacted me needs support and help from his local church, instead of the ridicule and skepticism that is too often the status quo. I guarantee, and I did this, folks, it's in my film In Their Own Words. It's up on our Vimeo channel. You can watch it. You can buy the video, lamarzulli.net. Shameless plug, hour and 37 minutes long. It's got people, but there's that come in on the record. But what I love about this is it shows me speaking at all these different conferences. And I go, how many of you in the audience have seen lights in the sky, orbs, a UFO encounter, had sleep paralysis, or had an encounter with an extraterrestrial being? Raise your hand. Upwards of 30% of the people in that audience have their hands raised. That's a dirty little secret that no one wants to talk about. So, everybody, this guy, this pastor that I was talking to, I mean, he's a nice guy and everything, and we had a decent conversation, but I could tell he was 100% skeptical of what he was hearing from me. He just like, well, what makes you think that this is? And I just go, look, I've been doing this forever. This guy's being taken. There's a door open here somewhere. He needs help. He needs the body to come and fast and pray with him and break whatever that thing is, that open door in his life. So once again, let's get back to the blog. I guarantee that upwards of 30% of the people in any congregation in USA, when asked, have seen lights in the sky, orbs, UFOs, sleep paralysis, or had an encounter with an alien being. What are we to make of this? Are we to sweep it under the rug and ignore it? And folks, this really this is the problem. Every day, or every Friday, I should say, on the Ancient Aliens, they address this, and it's ancient astronaut theorists. They're holding court, and our young people are listening to that explanation and not ours. So this is why at many of these conferences we go to, there's never a lot of young people, because they've already been swayed by a decade of Ancient Aliens. So I want to just end up with this, because I'm down to about the 10-minute mark. And it gets political here now. Why President Trump was somber. And this again is from the blog, lamarzulli.wordpress.com. Nancy Pelosi, who must be defeated in the next election cycle, she's lived her whole life in the House of Representatives, stated that Trump appeared sedated at the State of the Union address. Speaker Pelosi, with all due respect, let me inform you of a few things. The Russian collusion hoax was dreamed up by your party. During the campaign, the Russian P dossier was released to the American people. I read it and wondered if it was true. It was disturbing, to say the least. Now, we find out that the entire affair was fabricated. The trail leads directly to your party, to the Democrats, and the Hillary presidential campaign. Shame on you. You attempted to defraud the American people an election cycle with the canard. Number two, from the get-go, President Trump was accused of Russian collusion. After dragging the country through 3 years of drama, we find out that the Russian collusion story was based on the Steele dossier, which was fabricated by Steele, cooked up in a bar someplace, and had nothing to do with anything. And yet, that Steele dossier was the basis of a FISA warrant, 4 FISA warrants, which the judges never really looked at, which enabled the DOJ and the FBI to spy illegally on the Trump campaign. Are you kidding me? The Steele dossier, the Mueller report, and everything to do with it turned up to be one big nothing burger, and Trump was vindicated. So the Democrats keep rolling this stuff out over and over and over again. Then, because they control the House, Adam Schiff and his henchmen created the Star Chamber with the unknown whistleblower, who we still don't know who it is. Thank you, Sierra Mella. Oh, I said his name. The so-called impeachment trial could have come out of Nazi Germany or the former Soviet Union. I watched some of it. I was taken aback by what I was seeing. It was absurd. The Republicans are not allowed to call witnesses. And Schiff it was like, can you imagine if you were accused of a crime and you can't confront your accuser, and you bring up all these people as witnesses, and none of them heard the alleged phone call between President Trump and the Ukrainian president? None of them, except Ambassador Sunderland, who asked, he didn't hear the phone call, but he asked President Trump, do you want anything? And Trump said specifically, no quid pro quo, I want nothing. Of course, Sunderland left that out of the statement, which was 45 minutes long, implicating Trump, but when asked and cross-examined by Representative Jordan, I believe, he said, well, yeah, this is what Trump told me. He didn't want anything, no quid pro quo. And then Jordan, isn't it convenient that you left that out of your testimony? The most important facts, that he's the only person who heard Trump actually say, I want nothing. So the whole thing goes and just goes and goes and goes. It's another nothing burger. Sunderland and Vindman, who testified against the president, were recently fired in the wake of the impeachment proceedings, vindication of President Trump, should be required to wear a sign that says, I am a weasel. This whole thing with Vindman, this guy, I mean, where's his allegiance? Because he has a different policy than the president of the United States. Somehow we're going to listen to him? I don't think so. We didn't vote for you. We voted for President Trump. President Trump was also vindicated of a so-called quid pro quo in the Ukrainian phone call. The impeachment spectacle was a black mark on our country, and I would posit it will go down in history as a nadir of political partisanship. However, Speaker Pelosi resorted to sophomore tactics when she ripped up President Trump's speech on the floor of the House. Shame on her. All this to say that our president has been through hell and back again. The average American would have folded long ago. Most people would have buckled under this kind of stress. I know a little bit about this because I am a public figure. I have had hit pieces written against me, which were untrue, and in fact, in some cases, totally salacious. I've gotten used to it. But what I go through is nothing in comparison to what our president has endured and his family has endured. There's not an ounce of compassion in our corrupt media. Trump's run the gauntlet and come through it all in one piece with his core values intact. So Pelosi describes Trump as being sedated? No, Madam Speaker, he was somber. What we saw was a man who realizes how corrupt and broken our system really is. I can only imagine what his family has been through. The entire So-To speech was a list of his accomplishments in spite of the partisan witch hunt that has plagued our president since the moment he took office. I'll vote for him again as Trump reflects the values that I and millions of others of Americans hold dear. Somber indeed. Folks, it's just unconscionable what happened to our president and what continues to happen. But what do the Democrats have to offer? Socialism, tax the rich, take your money, and bigger government. No, thank you. What we witnessed in the first over 3 years with Trump's presidency was a soft coup to try to completely undo the will of the American people so the deep state could keep control. Never forget that. Push back, stand up, vote for him. That's all the time I have for. Thanks for watching Acceleration Radio right here on KGRA. Remember, folks, I will see you on the air or in the air. Thanks for watching.
You have been listening to Acceleration Radio Live, and any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or program content without express written permission from the KGRA DB or L.A. Marzulli himself is strictly prohibited. The Acceleration Radio Show with L.A. Marzulli, in direct cooperation with the internet website kgraradio.com. To find more on L.A., visit his website at lamarzulli.net.